The Dark Hulk saga concludes. Thanks for joining me. My name is Daryl, and I am the host of Read Your Comics. I'm continuing the Peter David Hulk run. And this is the second part to a two-part little story that got the original Defenders, minus the Silver Surfer, back together again. As I mentioned in my last video, I was kind of unfamiliar with the Defenders at the time, and the grouping of these characters, and I really was pretty unfamiliar with either of these characters. I knew who they were by Marvel Universe handbooks, things like that. I'd seen their books on the shelves, but neither character was really popping up in anything I was reading at the time. So in a lot of ways, this storyline was an introduction for me to Doctor Strange and Namor. I also mentioned how at the end of the last issue, when the Hulk gets taken over by this dark matter thing, strange matter is what they called it actually, some older kids that I knew thought that it was the Venom symbiote taking over the Hulk, and I went along with that thinking too. I was like, yeah, you're right, it is like a Venom thing. That's not what it is, but that would have been kind of neat, I guess, because McFarlane was wrapping up his Spider-Man run about this time and had done a couple Venom stories, the 316, 317 being the main one. So it's super exciting to think of that taking over the Hulk. We're also into the third issue of the Dale Keown as the full-time penciler here, and it was probably now that I was really taking note of his name even. He started on the last issue of the Countdown story. He jumped on for 2 issues before this, but by this issue, I was like, who is this artist that's on the Hulk regularly now? Because I was really digging his work. Before I jump into it, though, I do want to give a quick reminder that I have a Peter David Hulk playlist. You can find it right here or in the description below. You can catch up on every issue of the Peter David run up to this point if you're watching this on debut day, or might have gone farther but if you're watching this much later. Be sure to check that out. If you're new to the channel or just haven't done so already, be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. Go ahead and hit that bell so you get notifications. And before you leave, please hit like. It helps all the YouTube algorithm-y things to push this to other comic fans, especially Hulk fans in this instance, fans of 90s comics, yada, yada, yada. All right, cool cover. Let's jump in. So the Hulk had just been taken over by this dark matter creature, and he's going to burst out of Doctor Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum. I don't know if Keown just didn't like doing buildings or something. You would think he would take the opportunity to draw like a really cool looking Doctor Strange place with the window there that he has. But in the last issue too, he just did like a small panel. It's like he didn't really want to push himself on that or something. So he's bursting out. There's some tourists here. Some wreckage is about to fall on him. Doctor Strange is going to save him and repair this building at the same time. But you see our Dark Hulk jumping out. This body, this world, this universe, mine, all mine. As I mentioned, Peter David writing, Dale Keown, and Bob McLeod continuing to do the inking. I really like Bob McLeod inking Dale Keown here. And inkers are not something that I usually took a lot of notice of at this time. And since I really did start taking notice, I haven't really revisited this run either. So it's going to be interesting to see if there's a different inker in any coming issues, particularly when we get to the merged Hulk era, if it's still Bob McLeod or somebody else takes over and how it will change. But Bob McLeod and Dale Keown make a good pairing here. As I've already said in the other videos, reminds me of Byrne and Terry Austin a lot. Recap of the last issue, pretty much all we're getting on this page, some exposition. But the Dark Hulk is going to go kind of retreat in the alley for a minute as this entity that has taken over the Hulk is going to try to get his bearings of this universe he's in. And he explains to Banner here that he's actually the Sorcerer Supreme of another universe. And that unlike Doctor Strange, who uses his position and power as a protector of the black magic and mystic arts and so forth, this particular entity used it to lord over his universe and got tired of their whining and ended up killing them, but then got bored and decided to go looking for another universe to take over. And said that it tried to start with the old lady's body, but it was too weak and frail, and it crushed her as soon as it brought her into the dark matter area, or the strange matter closet world they were in. But the Hulk obviously can withstand it. And so he's going to have kind of like a mental plane battle with Banner, who's still there. But this creature also just sort of dismisses Banner in a lot of ways, like, oh, I'll take care of you eventually. Because what he finds here is that Namor has tracked him down, put his clothes back on. But his suit, did he have a suit on here? Or did he? In the last issue, Namor is wearing his, yeah, there he's wearing just a Speedo. But I guess he wanted to put his clothes back on to go fight him in the street. So this entity tries to like cage Banner up while he refocuses his concentration on the physical world and starts having a throwdown with Namor. This issue is going to move pretty quick because it's pretty much a throwdown between the Hulk, Namor, Doctor Strange kind of being there too, and Banner and this character having like the battle inside their heads. This car, they've been building it up since the Sam Keith issue. It goes fast. Car go fast. Shoo. Too fast for a police officer. Look at this headlock. It's always a fun time when these two throw down. Hulk versus Thor, Hulk versus Submariner, Hulk versus Thing. Those are some of the best, like, just punch up fighting issues, because where the Hulk versus Wolverine is fun too, it's different when he's fighting someone who has, strength that's kind of on par with him. In this case, Namor or Thor. When it's first Wolverine, it's like Wolverine's just kind of jumping around him, cutting him up and stuff. The Hulk will pummel him some. But when they can hit each other and make their bodies go flying through things, it makes for a pretty fun throwdown. So anytime you get these two together for a fight, it's an entertaining issue. And then it's like, just let the artist show off. One real fun one is Tales to Astonish 100. The Hulk versus Namor, they shared that book, but in the 100th issue, it was a crossover. So it was the whole issue. Mary Severin does the art in it. If you want to see me do that one, drop a note in the comments. This is in New York City. It's not quite nighttime, still kind of daytime. This creature being able to take over the Hulk was able to force the Hulk out during the daytime. And we've seen that happening a couple of times now. The Hulk came out during the daytime in the Sam Keith issue. So it seems at this point, Peter David's kind of over having to use that, which is probably going to explain what's in store over the course of the next few issues. I got a feeling Peter David's just like, how can we, just get away from that altogether? So the Hulk gets thrown into Washington Square Park in New York City by Namor, and they're going to, have a playground fight. I like how the Hulk pulls up this jungle gym and starts tearing pieces of steel bars apart and flinging them at Namor. And they're just ricocheting off of him, but they end up hitting bystanders, which enrages Namor. This is a great face on Namor. I like the way Keown does Namor a lot. He gives him like a thin, elongated face. There's a couple ways to draw Namor. This is very much in line with the way John Byrne was doing it. But, Kirby had more of like a triangular, like a wider head, which is kind of how Kirby drew faces in general. But the original Namor did have like a long, slender face. And I think Keown does it great right there. Maybe he has his widow peak coming a little too strong right there. And as I said, they're just going to have a great throwdown. Some hard-hitting punches where you really feel Namor's power in each one of those. And then he hits him into the side of the archway that the Dark Hulk then just decides to push over. And Namor is caught saving people. So that kind of takes Namor. He blocks this woman. He throws his body over this woman to stop this rebel from crushing her. Strange comes in with the Crimson Bands of Sidorak. Now, I will say, the Crimson Bands, like if you know Doctor Strange and you've seen artists like obviously Ditko, Frank Brunner, when they would do the Crimson Bands, I mean, there was a lot of like wavy, ornate looking representation, and here we just see some basic rings. So, not going out of his way there. Throughout these two issues, I would say Keown maybe not cut out for Doctor Strange. That's just for these two issues. Love him on the Hulk here. Would probably do a pretty awesome Namor series. But his lack of interest in drawing the Sanctum Sanctorum and also not really going all out on the Crimson Bands here, maybe he wouldn't have been the best choice for a Doctor Strange series. So as the Hulk is distracted, Banner's able to slip out of this little cage that he's in. We get our car. Car go fast. Car go through blockade. Rockavaluam. Back to the Hulk over here, who is able to use some kind of energy coming off of him through this dark, strange matter to break the bands. Doctor Strange using his little multiplying trick right here. And there's where Namor is revealed to have saved the girl. And really, the attention of the dark, strange entity is divided between Banner escaping on the inside and having to deal with Doctor Strange and Namor, who has burst open a fire hydrant to replenish his strength and energy. This is the best thing Keown has done with Doctor Strange, is these little panels kind of like this, and this strange energy. I wouldn't call it Kirby Crackle going around. But the more I look at this, the more I'm kind of thinking, like, I just don't think he was that interested in doing Doctor Strange. And at this point, Namor and Strange realize they got to get him out of this park. They've got to lead him back to the Sanctum Sanctorum because he's too prone to injuring innocent bystanders. I really like this look, though. Look at the way he draws, like, the length of his arms. He's just so long. Like, he's still wide and tall, but his limbs, his legs, and his arms are just so long. It really makes him feel like he has more reach. I can see where this comes across as very Venom-like. Very symbiotish. So Banner finds this door again. It's much smaller than it was when we saw it in the last issue. Look at it here. Look at the door there. Compared to there. I mean, it's in his head, so it can be whatever size they need it to be. But in this case, they need it to be small enough for Banner to start pushing on this lock or barrier holding it in. And whatever is behind it scares the bejesus out of the dark sorcerer. And it's just this green, glowing vortex. Now, I know the Immortal Hulk run, there was a lot about the green door. And I don't know if it was exactly connected to this or not, but it's having read that, within the last few years, that's definitely what I started thinking about when I saw this. And look, this is a nice dual panel because this is Doctor Strange's Sanctum and this is in the Mindscape. You're getting both looks here. And the strange entity gets sucked into the vortex. And as the Gray Hulk regains his, clarity, his own thoughts, he's like, quick, shut the door. And even Banner, who wanted the door open to see what was in it, he's right there with it. And the Hulk says something interesting here. And this is an interesting panel with what the Hulk says right here. He says, we did it, we did it. And Namor replies, calmly, Hulk, the enemy is gone. Yours is, but my two are still in. And he passes out. So that took everything out of the Hulk, like kind of his will. Immediately cut to Bruce, and again, Doctor Strange points out how fit Banner looks all of a sudden. And he does look even more muscular than when Namor said it in the last issue. So, as I was saying before, I thought maybe Peter David was just kind of scripting because Keown was drawing the Hulk was kind of drawing Banner a little bit more muscular, but this makes it more clear that no, he's being told, like, Banner's looking more muscular than usual. And you don't really see it too great here. I don't, either something didn't come through in the printing or it just wasn't rendered very well, is that he has a scar going all the way down his back. And it takes Stephen Strange saying something about it. And Banner just kind of brushes it off. Like, I don't want to know anything about that. Or I don't want to talk about that. But the big bombshell that is dropped on him is Strange tells him that he made a call. He found out where Betty was with a specific address and that she has had a miscarriage. She was pregnant in the McFarlane issues. She revealed it to Banner and the Hulk right before the Ground Zero issue with where he appeared to die, and then went through the whole Joe Fixit era. But there was an issue that Peter David did not write where Betty had the miscarriage, and Banner is just now finding out. And this is a great panel of his reaction and being angry and saying, "Oh, it's probably better anyway. He would have been a freak just like his father." And Strange tells him that he should hang out and recuperate from the news a little bit, but he refuses and goes on. So the next panel, we see Banner getting on the train. This should have been a better reveal. I'm covering it up because this is a lot to read, and you've already seen what's here. But it's essentially just Bruce walking up to the address he was given, and it's a convent. He says, "That's odd. Why would Betty be living in a..." And you see the expression on his face of surprise. I feel like that should have been on the previous page, so the page turn could reveal she's become a nun. And that could have been the end of the storyline. So the next issue, the return of an old colorful friend in Hell on Wheels. So Hell on Wheels would imply that this car that we've seen the last few issues is going to encounter the Hulk, and the return of an old colorful friend. What could that mean? That's it for this one. Really looking forward to the next one. Until then,
read your comics.